Hey everyone, thank you for choosing to spend time out of your day to listen to today's episode. I'm your host, Zachary Aird, and let's get this playing. So today we're with Billy Dee from Cascade Hoops Talk.
Thank you.
Get a little closer. So yeah, let's just start off by saying who you are, what you do, and why we're both in the same conference room right now.
Well, Billy Dee, Cascade Hoops Talk. I do a podcast devoted 100% to NAIA basketball. I cover it all season long. I cover all 22 conferences as best I can. I interview coaches and players all throughout the year. I go to every basketball game I can find. The last 2 seasons, 40,000 miles I've traveled, 25,000 of that by car. I've watched games in Oregon, Kansas, Indiana. Just kind of a big NAIA fanatic. So we came out here to Kansas City, and we've been covering this tournament from day one, and we'll be here through the championship game.
Yeah, so my first question that I wanted to ask you was, why have you been doing the podcast, as well as why did you choose to do the NAIA level?
Well, okay, why did I do the podcast? That's a good question. I retired a couple years ago, and my wife said, you got to find something to do besides go shopping with me. So I just always have been a big NAIA fan. I grew up in Clown Falls, which is the home of Oregon Tech. Been an Oregon Tech fan since I was a little kid. My dad was just a huge basketball guy, and he used to take me up to Oregon Tech before Danny Miles. Older guys will know who Danny Miles was. He won well over 1,000 games at Oregon Tech, and basically I just grew up in that gym. And then Danny Miles got hired when I was 14 years old. All of a sudden we started winning games there at Oregon Tech. And what drew me to the small college game and why I stayed with it as I got older was that whole entire family atmosphere. And I know you know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
I mean, you get to know all the players, but their families, their brothers, their sisters, the coaching staff, the athletic staff. And I was really drawn to that. And then as I got older and I could travel more to the opposing gyms, I got to know fans of other towns, players on other teams. And I just love that atmosphere. And that's why NAIA basketball. And so when I do my podcast and I talk about my love of NAIA basketball, it's not act.
Yeah.
I mean, I truly love NAIA basketball.
Yeah, that's fun because as we made it to the tournament and made it this far, we actually been seeing like Coach Keeley's alumni, Coach Keeley's family, and I was been here for 4 years, so it's fun to be my last year and finally be at the tournament.
Right.
And so now seeing all the alumni, seeing all the family, seeing his old AD, his new coaches, Coach Rocky Lamar, like meeting those type of people, it's like, wow, like there's many people watching without you even noticing. So is that kind of what happened with the family of NAIA is what you're saying?
Yeah, and it was, the family of Oregon Tech, my own family, because my dad donated. He was the original Oregon Tech booster in town.
Okay, yeah.
Oregon Tech athletics when I was a young man was, quite frankly, embarrassing. My dad was a local businessman, and he said, no, this can't stand. It's a small town.
Yeah.
And he thought it would be very good for the town for Oregon Tech athletics to be more prominent. And so he worked really hard with local businesses, started a booster club, and together with a few other men in town, they were able to start scholarships, and some of the things are the lifeblood of programs. But you talk about you talk about that excitement and that history. I got to tell you, relate one story. When I was I think I was a senior in high school, and Oregon Tech basketball just really started taking off, but it still wasn't a big deal in town. And I think Oregon Tech, I believe we were 17-1. The only game we had lost was up at Eastern Washington, which at that time they were still in our conference. And Eastern Washington was coming down to town. And this high school, we went to the great big high school. All around the county came there. And half the school was like, well, Oregon Tech's going to get it handed to them. They're going to go back into oblivion. The other half of people are like, well, I think these guys are for real. And Danny Miles Court, which is a big place to start with, holds about 2,300 people, was packed.
Sheesh.
I mean, shoehorned. I was down at the one end where it's open under the baskets, and there was hundreds and hundreds of people standing. I don't know how many people were in there, but it was sweltering hot. Went into overtime. The place was just fanatical. and Oregon Tech won that overtime game. And I always say that's the day that Hustlin' Owl basketball was born. And then a couple of years ago, we had an alumni event celebrating Oregon Tech basketball in Portland. And one of the guys who came was a guy named Phil Shear. And he was on that team. He and Dave Kerrigan were kind of like the co-captains of that team. And he stood up and he spoke to the current players and the families and the current boosters in the Portland area. And he related that story of being in that huddle in that game. And he says it was sweltering hot and we couldn't hear a word Danny was saying. And he goes, we figured, well, we must be okay because if we can't hear our coach, they can't hear their coach, and this is our gym.
Yeah.
And it was nice to hear him relate that same story that I had held so close, as the kind of the beginning of Oregon Tech, I call it the beginning of Hustlin' Owl basketball, which is what we all know today.
Okay. So did you play basketball as a kid?
Yeah, very poorly.
Oh, okay.
That's my friend over here.
Okay. So were you guys teammates back then?
No, well, we were, but we played, trust me, nothing like you. But we played all the time.
Yeah, outside on blacktop.
It was blacktop. It was up at the school, church league, we were renting gyms every night. I mean, we played all the time.
Everywhere.
Yeah, just wasn't any good, but I loved the game.
Mm-hmm. And I love that because almost every athlete that I talk to or have talked to, they never had trainers. And for me, I never had a trainer. It was always, my dad go get my rebounds or always playing with friends outside. I just, I think that's where you fit in. I think that's where, in a way, that's where you find basketball. That's where the most fun basketball is, like not at a trainer during cones. It's when you're playing open gyms at a church league with people, with family. So
yeah.
So how long have you guys known each other?
Well, first, my buddy's older than me. He's 35 days older. I want the whole world to know that. Our parents were best friends.
Okay.
And he's, like I say, he's 35 days older than me, next door neighbors, so 66 years.
Damn, and you guys are still here.
Yeah.
Still here at the tournament.
We fight like old ladies, but other than that.
Yeah, because I would have thought you guys were brothers the way you guys are talking to each other. I was a brother from another mother, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So what was those things like you guys playing one-on-one? Who won?
Oh, I was always small guy. I was always look at me now, but I was always the small guy. I always lost. I was the guy. You knew these guys growing up. I was always the guy that was too small, too slow, and would pout and act like I should have won. That was me.
You were crying on the sideline.
Yeah. But I seriously, I loved the game. I was hyper competitive, way too competitive for my own good. But it did drive me because. Like when I was 14, 15, 16, right in that age, I wanted to play as much basketball as I could. And I found that the only way that I could play competitively, even at the church league or pickups and where guys go, hey, I'll take you on my team, is if I went up to the school and I shot and shot and shot. I'd stand in front of the brick wall and just make passes to myself behind the back one way, all the kinds of things that now I find out are drills. It was just stuff that I would go up to the school and do. I would dribble down to one end behind my back one way and then through my legs the other way. Not because I would ever do that, because trust me, I wasn't talented enough to do that in the game. I get the ball stolen. But I just wanted to be able to handle the ball as well as I could. And I did all the stuff that, again, now I know they're drills. I would just pick a spot and shoot and shoot and shoot, or I would go around the horn and shoot. And I got to the point where I could at least compete, but I had to work that hard at it.
Yeah, you felt like you were a step behind everybody else.
I was slow and I was small. Yeah, that's a step behind. Yeah. My dad told me once that if I ran through the shower, I'd drown. I would have been insulted, but it was the truth.
No. So, yeah, that's funny that you say that because nowadays kids have technology. They have social media to just do those drills that you guys had to kind of come up with and be like, this works, or, you're finding success in. Yeah. So I think that's just special.
And then you mentioned one-on-one. There was a ton of one-on-one. Yeah. I mean, it was just or two-on-two, but most of it was one-on-one. And we'd play, and then of course horse, endless games of horse.
One more game. Yeah. It's always, we still play horse to this day, and we'll be playing it at halftime when they let you shoot. Yeah, we'll be playing horse sometimes. Like, okay, I'll hit the next one. You got to hit it too. Just fun games like that to just keep the game going, because I feel like so many athletes nowadays are kind of pushing like the game to make it more serious, and it's like how we started to get here. open gyms.
And I think the point that I'm making is a lot of this stuff that I'm talking about, I did because I wanted to play, but I went up to the school by myself and it was fun.
Yeah.
And then like I said, I found out now, oh, this is stuff that's drills when I was just up there playing ball.
Yeah.
I was just
in your own world, creating your own drills.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. It's where basketball is. That's the most funnest. Like if I could go back one day and be like, what's the most fun I had? It's my dad getting my rebounds or playing with friends that I don't get to play with anymore. So I just think that's so special that you're even talking about that. Like, like different generations almost go through the same thing.
Yeah.
So talking about the NAIA national tournament, what has been your favorite experience thus far, or like your favorite moment during this national tournament this year?
I thought that the William Penn overtime game was really good. Actually, I enjoyed the game. I enjoyed the most was last night, Indiana Tech and Arizona Christian.
Oh yeah.
I don't think I interviewed Grant Smith and Blake Davison today. I don't think anybody got more than a 3-point lead. I'd have to go back to the play-by-play and look, but it was one of those games, and then I couldn't decide. And I'm not saying this is negative towards either team, but I couldn't decide if nobody wanted to win it or nobody wanted to lose it. Because it would seem like somebody would gain an advantage and then they'd give it right back, and then the other team would take it.
Exactly.
It was a real seesaw. I really enjoyed that. I've also this is the first time that I've really seen Georgetown and get to know some of those guys. So I've really enjoyed that. Jake Omer, the show he put on the other night. I mean, I don't care who you are. That's amazing. I mean, this guy just took the game over, and he had that look in his face like, give me the ball, I'm going to make another one.
Yeah.
Just that. I love that. That's the talent. Just took over.
The talent of the national tournament right now is like just beyond of what it was years ago. You see the old film, and like now it's like people are competing for the red banner.
Yeah.
So I think it's just special. But back to the ACU game, we got there late from dinner. I think I got there 8 minutes left to go. And man, it was like kept going back and forth. I think number 20 from Indiana Tech they bobbled the rebound and he hit the mid-range shot to give them up one, I think. And they just rolled through. I think he hit a 3 right after.
Yeah, honestly, I'd have to have the play-by-play in front of me, but it was big shot after big shot after big shot. Indiana Tech got a stop with about a minute to go. They were already up by 4. They got a stop. Arizona Christian threw the ball away. I thought that was the key to the game. But then down at the other end, Indiana Tech had an opportunity to just put it away and couldn't put it away. I mean, it was a war.
So, it was a good bout. Like the 8 minutes I was there, I was like, this is a good game because anyone could just win it right away.
Both those teams are really experienced and really, really well coached. And so it was a shame either team had to lose, really.
Yeah. So how'd you think about the last shot of ACU? Did you like how'd you think?
It was
because I was kind of sitting there like, come on, make like
there was no they never really had a they didn't run it. I mean, they didn't. I don't know if I turned to my friend and I said, all that and it ended like that. Something had to have broke down. I mean, those guys are all way too good. I mean, it wasn't just they didn't have a plan. I mean, they must have had something planned that broke down because they were left taking a desperation 3. And I mean, as you know, it wasn't even close. But I was really surprised they didn't get it. Some kind of a good look. That team, that well coached. I expected them to come in and do a back cut or something. And,
just to take the game away, and I was just watching. It felt like slow motion when I think it was Angelo that was dribbling it.
Yes, it was.
It felt like so much slow motion of like, is he gonna shoot it? Like I'm just waiting, and then time goes by and it's misses. And
the buzzer went off and it surprised me.
Yeah.
It's over?
Yeah. Because I was like,
exactly.
Yeah. And the crowds were in it. I loved it. That was a good atmosphere.
It was a good atmosphere. I think the crowds this week have been really good.
Really good.
I think the Ottawa, the OUAZ.
Yeah.
Alex Billy made sure I understand. Yeah. I apologize to all the Ottawa, Arizona OUAZ fans because I always say Ottawa, Arizona. But the OUAZ fans that are here in Kansas City have been amazing. The College of Idaho fans.
Yeah.
They really travel really well.
Yes,
The
they
Jamestown
do.
fans who were out for the game, they were just here for the one game. They were really good. All the fans are good. It's just some of them, but you got to give props to the College of Idaho filling
Yes.
up 2 sections all the way from Idaho.
Yeah,
I mean,
they have the whole side of the whole sideline
Yeah.
just filled with people, and they have flags. Do they have
no,
flags?
the flags was Jamestown.
Jamestown. Okay,
yeah,
that was yesterday before.
Tuesday. It
Yeah,
was
I'm forgetting
Tuesday.
all my days with this tournament.
Man, you're getting old, Zach.
I don't know. I'm only 22.
But
Okay.
Jamestown, they travel with those fans. I mean,
Yeah.
they take those flags everywhere.
Because they were pounding on the stairs, and I'm like, what is going on? Like, that's scary. Like a defense chant equal to that. I'm taking the flags every day.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Then College of Idaho, we played them early in a tournament at ACU, beginning of the year. I think it was like our second game, and College of Idaho fans were there, and I was like, this is just like a regular game, no postseason, nothing, and they all came, like the parents and stuff. I was like, this is exciting because they travel.
Yeah,
And
they travel really well.
yeah, like the bar area is full with. If we go up there right now, College of Idaho is probably at the bar right
Yeah.
now. Like, it's just cool seeing that atmosphere and all that kind of stuff. So, I know you've been starting a podcast, or not started, but it's been transitioning, the Cascade Hoops talk. How has that helped you through the NAIA, and like what challenge are you facing through this podcast right now, and how are you kind of like tackling it?
Well, the biggest challenge I have is I'm an older guy and I'm not really a technology guy. Okay, so that's one, and then the other thing is there's so many teams. I started it when there were still the 2 divisions, and I said, okay, I'm going to focus on Division 2. That's where Oregon Tech is in the Cascade Conference. And I had a daily newspaper that I put out for all Division 2, and it was very, very manageable. I thought I had a really good handle on it. And since it's grown to both divisions, it's just overwhelming. So I almost always am traveling on Saturday. And then, by the time we get back to the hotel room, it's 10:30 at night.
Yeah.
And there's like 90 games, and you're trying to sort through them. What do I need to tweet about,
Yeah.
And that's just overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're trying to figure, okay, this game is significant. Well, this game is pretty significant. Well, this is a big game for them because now they've moved up a spot in conference.
Yeah.
And honestly, it just gets overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. That's why if you listen to my podcast, you notice that this year, instead of focusing on the top 25, which everybody is interested in, the second half of the season, I tried to focus on the conferences because that's where the races are. Okay, there's 22 conferences. I can focus on that. And there's a few conferences that the most people will listen for, right? There's a lot of fans for GSAC. There's a lot of fans in the GPAC. There's a lot of fans in the Crossroads. And just being quite honest, some of the other conferences, I don't get as many listeners. There's just not the fan base.
Yeah.
So I try to concentrate where the biggest fan base is and what means the most. And if you really follow NAIA, the top 25 is nice, but where you're going to end up is going to be driven by your conference.
So what has been like the most exciting part through the podcast?
Oh, just getting to meet people. I mean, meet you.
Yeah.
Coaches. And I know almost every coach in the country, which if you told me like 5 years ago that I would know 10 coaches, I wouldn't have believed you. I've gotten to know so many players, and that is really cool. But here's the cool part. It's one thing to say, oh, I got to meet this player, get to know them. What I have found is that NAIA athletes are amazing. You watch them and you can, because guys on the court are different off the court, right?
Yeah.
It's just reality. The adrenaline's running, you're competing. And you sit down and you interview them and you get to know them. You find out that, it's a really nice guy,
Yeah.
I'll give you a good example. A guy named Ty Hoagland, he played at Dakota Wesleyan. First time I saw him play, I wasn't a huge fan. He'd make a three, it'd be the big celebration. I'm not a big celebration guy. And I wasn't real sure about him. And I was interviewing him at the end of I think his junior season, and they had gotten beaten at the Division II. Kyle Mangus, a guy that everybody in NAIA basketball knows who Kyle Mangus is, hit a three to beat him basically at the buzzer back in Sioux Falls. And so I asked Ty about that. I said, Ty, you made that big shot. You had the crowd going wild. Mangus comes down and buries that three. And Ty Hoagland goes, "Oof, nah, that was a big boy shot. Wasn't that great?" And at that moment, I realized he just loves the game.
Yeah.
He just loves the game. You know, and, I completely misread him by watching him just on the court. So that's just one example, right? If, getting to know people and that understanding their different personality off the court than on the court.
Is there another exciting story through the podcast that you've kind of taken or you kind of reconcile and be like, that I just love that moment? And that almost like it keeps you going on your podcast.
I think there's a couple. I'll just share a couple. I know I teased you about this. I said I never shut up.
No, yeah, keep talking.
At the end, last year I did the Kansas City coverage different because I'm not a millionaire. I came out for the first 3 days when it was, and then it would. How did they do that? They wrapped up on Sunday was the off day, and I flew home on Sunday because I couldn't really justify not missing another week at home. Do you know what I'm saying? This week with it all being 1 week was a lot easier. Anyway, putting that aside. So I was home when Loyola won, and I had met Miles Burns and the guys at Loyola.
They won it last year.
They won it.
Yep.
And so the game ends, and I get a text about, I don't want to exaggerate, but it wasn't more than 15 minutes after the game.
Yeah.
And it was Miles Burns. And I couldn't believe it. And I got him on like right away. And I recorded the interview, which I thought that was amazing that I got that. And then my phone lit up, and it was Zach Reitzel, Player of the Year.
Yeah,
I want to be on Billy Dee.
Yeah, Billy Dee's
well,
Cascade Hoops.
I think we can do that. And so here I'm at 11:30 p.m.
Yeah,
and these guys are still
getting
celebrating, and I get to interview them, and that was really really exciting for me. And then there was another. Getting to a conversation, that was an exciting moment.
Yeah.
But two things. One in particular that in an interview with Kyle Mangus, he said to me one time, and he talked about respect everyone. Oh no, fear no one, respect everyone. He says it way better than me.
Yeah.
But that was something that I really, really learned, and when I watch athletes, I try to remember that. I mean, if that's kind of a life lesson that all athletes could take, because, and I hate to sound like the old man, but I think we always the game was always rough and tumble. I mean, I'm not saying, but there's guardrails, and I think disrespecting opponents has become a little bit too common. You win, be proud. But Kyle Mangus was getting to know him and the way he conducted himself, and he always won with such grace. And hear him talk about that. It was not really an exciting like rah-rah moment, but I think it's a lesson that really hit home for me.
The little moments in a way. Yeah. So speaking on like disrespecting opponents and all that, this tournament, like having everyone in a hotel has been nice because you get to, I'm not talking to the players, but it's just like, a fist bump goes a long way, a high five, or I'm going to shout him out. Who's the big on ACU? He comes off the bench, 42. I forgot his name. We do the scout, so I forgot his name. But I'm going to my room. We just got done with film because we're advancing, and it was last night, and they're not advancing. So I literally get to my room. I'm trying to get my wallet, get the key, and I see an ACU player. So that's our rival. So I'm kind of like, oh, this guy could beat me up, like just jokingly. And I'm putting my key in. He says, "Good luck next game for the Yotes." And I'm like, man, like he doesn't have to say that. And like if I was in his shoes, I'd be like, oh man, they're still in the tournament, But he has awareness, and I think he's a senior, so he has the awareness, and it's bigger than basketball, is what I'm saying, like trying to get to. And I just. I took that moment. I remember calling my dad after. I was like, man, that's a true, not a man, but a guy who loves the game. And,
you saw that same, I'm going to call it a couple of things. You saw that same thing after the College of Idaho game with Tougaloo right out in the center of the court. And I thought it was a really good moment.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's bigger than basketball, right? This basketball thing is perishable. I don't care how good you are. I mean, unless you're that one out of a million. 22, 23, 24, basketball kind of ends, right?
Yeah.
And what kind of person are you? What kind of man are you? Is going to be way more important than how good your jump shot is.
Yep.
And so I thought, and I saw that. And then the other thing I've noticed in this tournament, I've made a mental note of it. Everybody helps everybody up.
Yep.
And there's none of this, and you see it in conference play a lot. Somebody will put their hand down. They'll put like, no. You're not gonna. But here, everybody's like, there's a lot of mutual respect here.
Yep. Perfect.
Yeah.
We just did the event today. I think I was talking to you about it, but it was the Special Needs Olympics. Right. And I just think that was so special because it was the 4 Final Four teams. Everyone has an off day today. And, all the coaches decided, let's all go support this. Let's go support the basketball clinic. And it was a good event because we all came together. Like, we were next to College of Idaho, who are playing tomorrow. And who's the other side?
Georgetown and Indiana Tech.
Indiana Tech. And they're like talking. We're all talking together. There was a magic show. And, we're all laughing. Like, we're all sitting in one group. And you wouldn't see that in the NCAA. First of all, going to a clinic on a day off. And then, secondly, sitting together, being friends. And just, we're all I feel like everyone's just taking the moment in because this could be once in a lifetime.
Yeah.
Run or Cinderella run, playoff run. So I just think that's special. And
you'll probably find, obviously, the guys you play with are going to be lifelong friends.
Yeah.
But the guys you play against, especially your GSAC rivals, I mean, those are guys you'll run into like 10 years down the road, and you'll go, that guy played at Jessup, or that guy played it. I mean, and a lot of mutual respect, or I don't know if that's the right word, but that'll be lifelong.
Yeah.
And then when somebody found out you play at OUAZ, that'll become part of your personality, and they go, oh, so and so. Do you know so and so who played at Westmont? Or I mean, it's going to be a piece of you even after you leave. And a piece of you will always stay at OUAZ. And that's what it is. And that's kind of the perpetual, and that's what grows these. Everybody talks culture, right? Culture is an easy word to say, but it's hard to do.
Hard to grow.
And it's alumni, it's fans that have been around, and it's right. The word culture means this is how we do things, right? Mm-hmm. This is how we do things, and you can that. There's all kinds of ways. I don't want to say it the wrong way, but there's just all kinds of ways, and we know what we're talking about, that the stuff we don't want to see.
Yeah.
And then there's teams that even if they lose, you go, hey, that's a really good team, right? And you can grow that culture. And when something steps out of line, there's a whole bunch of people from alumni to fans that say, that's not the way we do things here.
Yeah.
That's not what we do.
Yeah. And I think with our group, the first couple of years, Keeley was trying to. I think it's our 5th year of Ottawa. We're very young.
Yeah.
So this is my 4th year. My first year, I was like, we couldn't make the tournament because you're not eligible to.
Right.
Because you have to be 2 years. The whole dilemma. And so, but just seeing that, like, we weren't winning games. Coach Keeley's preaching, play fast. And we're like, get out of here with that. Not like that, but just the seniors we had, the people we had, it just felt like it was gelling. And I was like, I need to stay. So now looking into the future, what we have now, it's kind of crazy to see just like how developed it's been. And, like Keeley's finally, he deserves it in a way.
Yeah.
He deserves it. All the coaches deserved it. And then back to what you were saying about the alumni, like just looking in the crowd, starting a defensive chant, and it's Coach Keeley's family, Coach Keeley's teammates, his old college, like you were saying, lifelong friends are just cheering him on. I'm like, man, we're part of something bigger. And, if we keep on this run, then, Keeley's we're going to hold a special place in Keeley's heart forever.
You see a lot of that at Jessup, where the alumni guys the recent alumni will sit right down on front. They'll go, Miles, come here. They'll talk to him.
Yeah.
So at every school it's different, but it's important to the alumni, because as OUAZ goes, your reputation goes.
Yep.
Do you follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So if OUAZ as a school and a basketball program, athletic program, soars over the next 10 years, you say, oh, I played at OUAZ.
Yeah. Like, no, you didn't.
Yeah, you have a lot invested beyond getting the degree. I mean, you have a lot invested in that school continuing to succeed. Yeah. That's why it's so important to student athletes really need to consider when they leave, I know there's a big transactional thing with going to college now, where I give you this big pile of money and then I leave. But student athletes have that opportunity for one reason. There's a whole bunch of people that donate time and money to make sure that those programs survive. And athletes, as they leave and then they have life success thanks to that, need to come back and give back in any way they can. And that I don't see enough of that, but that needs to happen more.
Yeah. I actually just realized that because it never dawned on me that like Coach Keeley has to make the flight some nights, or our assistant coaches, our ADs, they have to email all of our teachers. And it just like dawned on me kind of my senior year, like there's so much that goes into it just behind the 40-minute game that people see. And I think it's just special.
Yeah.
And giving back, I actually just recently, I haven't been offered it yet, but it's going to happen, of being the strength coach for Ottawa, like a GA spot, so the graduate assistant. So yeah, like, because I love the school, I love that Keeley, kept me for 4 years, and just like my way of giving back is, I can get my master's for free while pursuing a career that I
that's
enjoy.
amazing, Zach. Yeah. I hope that comes through. It sounds like it's a pretty sure deal, huh?
It's a pretty sure deal. It's just like the whole tournament, I have to go intern out. It's pretty much sure, but like it's just special because I thought I could come here, play basketball, play this, and then God has different ways to put in your life, and that was a curveball. I was like, I kind of like this field, and I enjoyed the weight room. So
what are you majoring in?
Exercise science.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I love learning about the body and how the body moves. I love learning about sports psychology too. Kind of why I started this podcast, I love hearing people talk. I love that your stories can now, like, we connect to each other, stories, because that's what keeps people going is stories. And
there's a huge amount of winning basketball teams that's mental.
Yep.
Because if you look across the country, obviously CJ, I'm not going to start naming them all, but there's amazing athletes across the country. Mason Walters, Riley Minix, on and on and on. There's amazing athletes. But if you look across whatever there is, 250 teams, whatever the number is, the level of talent from bottom, well, I'm not going to say from maybe the top, the first 100.
Yeah.
It's I don't think it's that much different. But the mental toughness, the culture, the will to win, that's huge. And the teams that really, I'll give you a good example because I see them all the time. It's College of Idaho. I look at them man for man for man for man for man. What do they have that other people don't have? Okay, they're skilled basketball players. I'm not going to. But they just play together. They play really, really, really hard. And when they step on the court, they think they're going to win. And I know you play them tomorrow, but it's a lot of the game is mental, is what I'm saying. A lot of athletics is mental. Just that we are going to win. We are better than you. And these are my teammates, and we're going to go to war. And that if teams and coaches that can saddle that mental piece of the game are a leg up.
Yeah. And that's funny that you said that because the coach that we hired, Coach Brett, I think you've talked to him before.
Okay, yeah.
I think you might have. Coach Brett is the taller assistant coach, and then there's Coach Sprue, who's the alumni.
I know who you're talking about, yeah.
So Coach Brett actually, because Coach Hepker was still our assistant coach, so they hired Coach Brett to be our mental, basically like our mental training athletes, to just be like you're bigger than basketball, and that's not your identity because, like you said, basketball ends at 22, 23, so then what you're going to do after is what your purpose, it can only go so far, and some people make pros, some people don't. So he got hired, so when Coach Hepker left, we kind of had an open spot for Coach Brett.
Right.
So I just think it was special, like what you're saying right now, right on, like I think teams need that mental aspect of the game to just, that could win you a game, is just being together, in a timeout, down one. Can you be together as a team, or are you going to dwell in what just happened in the past? Just think that's so special because we hired Coach Brett and he's done amazing things with our team, and just teaching us that's life. We lose, that's life. If you win, that's all there is.
And that's important for you guys at that level, and I believe you're right. I'd like to see that get pushed down just a little bit more.
Yeah, to middle
because,
high school.
Guys come out of high school now and they like, oh, they have really super high expectations.
Yes.
Let's put it that way.
Very high.
And then, which is fine, and the coaches have to deal with that. But where I worry about them is I worry about guys when they either get injured or when basketball just suddenly ends.
Yeah.
And if they've devoted their entire life and their whole being, I've seen it.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden a basketball's gone, or they blow out a knee, basketball's gone. It's a dangerous time for a person.
Yes. Very young.
And I think if you go back into what we're doing, and I don't want to call it AAU, it's just with everything with the youth sports. We're just pumping these kids up so much. Like in 6th, 7th grade, I went to the Les Schwab Invitational this season, and my friend is with me, and he's going. He's a blue chipper. He's a sophomore, you know. And these are kids. They got these guys sitting in the front row down at the Les Schwab, and I don't know who they are, but these people are working with people to get them into schools, and these are like 9th graders and 10th graders, and I'm just thinking, man, let these guys be kids.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just pumping them full of all this stuff about you're the next latest and greatest. Well, what happens if a shoulder goes out? What happens if they blow a knee and you've told them that they're nothing but basketball players?
Yep.
I know I'm getting on my soapbox, but
No,
I worry about that. And if I know a young man who got injured, I always reach out to him because I always make sure that they know that they as a person are far more important to me than they as a basketball player.
Yeah,
and we need to make sure everybody knows that more.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's so special because kids these days, you're right, like so much high expectations, getting to college. And then, like you said, it's like burnout. You don't want to get burned out with the sport that you're only going to be with for 20, 22 years. So, yeah, because for me, I had high expectations. I was like, oh, I'm going to play. I saw Ottawa as like a lower team. I was like the NAIA, yeah. And then when I got here to the first open gym, I was like starstruck. Like, oh, there's some athletes in the NAIA. I can't imagine NCAA. So I had to change that transition that I'm bigger than basketball. Can I be a good teammate? Can I lift people up when they're having a bad day? A season's long. 30 games, people think that's short, but it's a long season. And, there's a lot of ups and downs, and we've had many. And can someone in that locker room be the one to pick them up? Because I don't think a coach should always be doing that. Yeah. The coach is there to, our coach is fortunate enough to know each person individually.
On a lot of teams, the guy who plays 2 minutes a game is the most important guy because he's the best teammate, and because of those things you mentioned.
Yeah, and it's just special because I see it through college. Like all the Final Four teams have those like 3 dudes who are constantly giving high fives, constantly being like, "You're good, keep your head up," talking to them in huddles. Like that's the winning teams. I think that's what separates. Mm-hmm. Can you have a good bench? Can you have a bench, the next bench? And it's like I said, a long season. You need those type of people. Yeah. And like you said, I think we should, like with our podcast, it just, like seeing your podcast, there might be an 8th grader, a freshman, seeing someone like Joe or Minix on it and being like, that's who I want to be, because the NAIA level is starting to become very big and very fast. And I think you're starting the jump on it with Cascade Hoops Talk and, seeing that kind of stuff because I like what you're putting out. I like it's special. And
you talked about going to OUAZ and it's NAI small school. Yeah. You don't know how many guys I've talked to who were like bubble athletes, right? Guys who were recruited at a little bit of D1, some D2, and they end up going to an NAI school, and they're thinking, I'm just going to go tear them up. Yeah. And then they'll go and they're like, oh, dude.
It's different over here.
Yeah, I found out that I had to go to school, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to drop names, but I mean, we're talking some really good players.
Yeah.
That just NAI basketball is really good. And young men, I try to push and try to get as many Portland high school players down, like when Oregon Tech plays Corbin. That's mainly the game. It's an easy one for them to get to because they need to see it's a packed gym, a lot of excitement, and there's like big, strong guys
Yeah.
playing this game really, really fast.
Yeah, and it's crazy
Yeah.
because coming out of high school, because I had the offer, and I was telling my friends who were on the basketball team, I was like, yeah, an NAIA, and saying that at the lunch table, they were like, NAIA, like what's that? And now, you know, them seeing like me reposting everything, like there's crowds, like, you know, it's just so special to see NAIA grow in just 4 years, 2 years. So
Yeah.
it's special. NAIA it's up there, and you've seen it. There's some NAIA teams that beat D1s. We did last year against Denver, and I want to say ACU beat one. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's always those little games.
I'm an old guy. Now, you've tested my memory twice.
Oh,
so far.
okay.
And let's
Yeah.
don't mention,
Here.
it's like
Yeah, it's
3:30
late.
in the morning.
Yeah, it's late. It's not 3:30. It is 10. That is my fault. That is
No,
funny.
no, no,
Nah,
I'm joking.
Yeah, because
But-
that's another thing.
But
is-
yeah, I'll tell you what, like a lot of Crossroads teams, you notice no D1s will play them?
Nope,
Yeah.
they won't. They won't because they know they
Exactly.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I mean, D1 ball is always going to be better, right? Because the best, they're getting the great big guys,
Yeah.
and they got the 6-7 point guards.
they
And,
got meal plans. They got
Yeah.
endorsements. They got
but
everything you could dream
but
of.
the gap has really shrunk.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
It has. And it's when you get to this level, it's kind of like you're so close, but then you're so far. Like playing those guys, you know, the first 10 minutes, it's a close game.
Exactly.
And then you see their weight room kick in and be like, okay, they're stronger. You just see that difference right away. And yeah, like we played NAU and it was close for like the first 5 minutes and then they just blew away. And it was like, like we almost, you know. And Denver was a great atmosphere because they had a hockey game and they're known as a hockey school.
Exactly, yeah.
And they were having malfunctions or it was halftime, and they told all their fans to come to our game. So like the last 3 minutes of the basketball game, it was filled because all the hockey players.
Oh,
and I
wow.
was like, it was starstruck because we won by 1 and we ran out with a free throw and. Yeah, we ran straight to the locker room because we didn't want any problems with anyone. So just like those memories are what you're going to keep forever. And yeah, it's special. So next question. We kind of joke around with the OUAZ Barstool account. Do you kind of want to talk to...
Does Twitter have an OUAZ Barstool account? I don't think I've ever seen it.
Oh, yeah. Now you're messing. So, yeah, I just wanted to ask you because, like, what's the funniest thing that you've seen them post so far? Because it's funny that they interact with you.
Yeah.
Because, you know, like, that helps you out.
Well, the backstory is I kind of stepped in it. I really try not to be too controversial because I honestly do love a game. And I was talking after the GSAC tournament, not this year, but last year, that ended on the Josiah made another big shot in that one. And I thought it was, I think they called a foul and I said, man, I told Coach Von Vogt, I really didn't like that call. I thought you guys won that game, which that was my opinion.
Yeah.
That was just my opinion.
Yeah.
And I just thought it passed, and this particular Twitter account,
next thing you
which
know,
is quite entertaining actually. Yeah, just lit me up, and I did what I typically try to do with Twitter accounts that try to light me up. Is I laid off because I knew it was a lot of fun somebody was having, so I let it go. And then the funniest part was months later. I got a mention. I go, what's this? OUAZ Barstool. Yes, Cascade Hoops Talk. Last week was my birthday, and no, you weren't invited. And I thought that was hilarious. And I interviewed Coach Keeley not too long after that incident. And I love a spirited fan. I mean, you'd have to go to a basketball game with me to understand that. I mean, I am loud. I am.
You're letting them know.
I'm a loud fan. And so I can really appreciate a spirited fan and a fan who wants to stick up for their program. So the OUAZ Barstool, it did not offend me a bit. I think that's cool how you stood up for your school. I did have my opinion, and you had that opinion of that play, but the fact that you stood up for your team, I thought that was awesome.
Yeah.
And the joke about the joke about not inviting me to your birthday party, that was pretty funny. And then I did a tweet a few weeks later about, it was when Josiah hit the game winner against Baker.
Yeah.
And the OUAZ Twitter said, "Thou shalt not speak his name," which I thought was. And I almost responded to that one because I had some funny ones in my head. But
did you?
Hey, I did, and I ain't repeating them here.
Okay.
But I'll tell you,
cancel.
Whoever it is, they're really spirited, and they obviously care a lot for athletics at OUAZ, and they add something to the atmosphere. So I'm all for it. I think it's great.
Yeah, it's been funny because I think it started during the GSAC tournament last year, and I don't know what happened, but every team that we were beating, we were just rolling through teams, and they just kept responding, and they love Coach Keeley. Like Coach Keeley's in almost every tweet with them. And like you said, it's just so special that someone that we don't know is doing that for. It could be a parent. I mean, it could be anyone. So it's just special that someone is doing that for.
But
the
it's kind of cool actually for OUAZ because you've got to create a buzz. And I don't know, anybody who follows my podcast and follows my stuff, I'm always a little bit bigger. Well, I'm a big guy, but I always am a little bigger than I need to be because. I mean, there's so much blah, 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 blah. And to get somebody's,
attention.
you need to have some fun.
Yeah.
You need to have some fun. And it gives almost a level of mythology to what's going on. Yeah. Because I'll say it again. I said it to Coach Keeley twice. I am just floored what you guys have been able to do down there with that school. I mean, I think it's a movie. You go out in the middle of the desert, you build this school, what is it, 5 years later, you're in the Final Four? I mean, that's...
insane.
It is.
Yep.
It's crazy. And then just having that Twitter account that kind of adds a mystique to it, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it is special. So I guess this is our last question, and I just wanted to ask you, what's one thing that you want to talk about, or not so like get off your chest, but something that you want to tell the audience, and then just something that the audience can learn from you?
Well, there's nothing they can learn from me. I can tell you that. The only thing I would say is a lot of people come up to me and tell me how much they appreciate what I do. And that really means a lot to me because this is just a labor of love for me. I'm not that good at it. Some things I'm good at, some things I'm not so good at. Sometimes I takes a few days in between a podcast to get out. People probably wondering where I'm at. I do as much as I can. But I truly, honestly do love NAIA basketball. And I love when people come up and tell me that they enjoy what I do because that kind of keeps me going because, as you know, with a podcast, you almost feel like you're operating in a little bit of a vacuum.
Yeah.
And you're doing all this work, and I have to prepare all these interviews. I have to schedule the interview. I do the interview. I have to edit the interview. I have to get the interview out. And then you look at the numbers and stuff, and you wonder, does anybody really even care?
Yeah.
And then I get to Kansas City, and people come up and go, "Hey, Billy Dee, love what you do." That just, it's like, yeah, it is worth it. It really is worth it. Especially when I hear it from players.
Yeah.
Because that's what it's all about, right? I want to give a platform to as many players as I possibly can because I do believe NAIA basketball is something special.
Yeah, and I just love what you said because, like, for me, getting like a DM or something and being like, "Oh, that was a great snippet of the video," or just hearing those kind words from someone who's taking time out of their day to give you a compliment, I'm just like, okay, there is something to keep going with the podcast.
Exactly.
And I'm hoping this podcast, gives you more audience, and then as well, vice versa for me. And, it's just special because podcasts is, there's probably someone watching, and then all you need is one repost, one like, one retweet, and it just goes from there.
Yeah.
And I know you can relate to that because social media is a crazy place.
Yeah, it's hard to figure out. I'll do an interview, and it just is like, boom, it'll just sit there. And then I'll do another one 2 days later, and boom, it'll just get, X whatever number, thousands of views or whatever.
Yeah.
And to me, there's no rhyme or reason to it. I can't really figure it out.
Yeah.
But I know that the videos that we post on Twitter, and I'm trying to get them transferred over to YouTube,
Yeah.
of all the interviews we did here in Kansas City, those videos get a lot of views.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
And I really
yeah.
enjoy being able to interview the players. I really enjoy that a lot.
Yeah, and it's because when I watch your guys' interview, the Cascade Hoops, it's almost like I'm there with you guys, almost like behind the camera, you know? And I just love listening to podcasts. And when I saw yours, I was like, man, I feel like I'm listening to this athlete talk just about the game, or because, you know, you can't watch every game in NAIA. So you doing a interview of a great player who just had a good game or just lost, I'm just like, oh, that's who we're going to play. Or, you know, like you just hear names all around, and just putting a face to a name.
Yeah.
It's just so special.
Well, that's why what we did this year, and my friend who came downstairs with me, he and another friend of mine, Chuck, helped me because we just carry my phone around.
Yeah.
That's my podcast studio when we travel. And I always go to the coaches because I follow Oregon Tech. Everybody knows that. I follow Oregon Tech. And I just go to the coaches wherever we are. And if I go to Eastern Oregon, I'll go to Coach Kemp. I'll go, hey, whoever wins, if you guys win, get 2 guys out here by the basket, and I'm going to interview them. And our coaches are like, oh, yeah, yeah. And then Oregon Tech lost more than one did it this year, so it was a little bit tough. I mean, you're sitting there, you cheer, then all of a sudden you got to interview the guy. But my wife told me, get over it, you're there for the guys. But every time a player came out, they were extremely humble, extremely thankful.
Yeah.
And we would do the interview right there in front of the basket. It was just really cool. But mothers and friends and girlfriends would watch, and then we posted up on Twitter. Super rewarding.
Yeah.
And that's the level of I don't know if attention is the right word, but publicity or whatever that this sport needs. And I'm just one guy, and I can only go to a few games each week. But if I had my lottery dream, I'd have a motorhome, and all season long I'd be going around to all these different conferences, and I'd be going to games and interviewing guys after the game, because it's just so great to get them up on Twitter and, like you say, let everybody see them and hear them.
Yeah.
And they're always great guys. Always. It's amazing.
Yeah. It's not like you know, the NBA interviews where someone's cussing or, you know, none of that. It's just fun to see someone talking. I don't know. I can't explain it because I know you're feeling the same way. Just to hear someone, you know, have the time today to talk to you, just like we are right now.
Well, let me put it in perspective. How much it means to the players is during the regular season, I interviewed a couple of guys from Eastern Oregon because they beat Oregon Tech twice.
Yeah.
And so I got to know them. And we go over for the playoff game, the first round of the Cascade Conference playoffs game, and the warm-ups are going on. And where we sit behind the Oregon Tech bench, the doors right there go out to the men's room. And I'm going out, and of course, in front of our bench, Eastern Oregon's warming up. You know how that works. And I'm going over there, and Sean McGinnis, who plays for Eastern Oregon, as I'm going out the door, doing warm-ups, he grabs me. He goes, hey, man, it's great to see you here. I got all my Oregon Tech gear on, and he grabs me. I mean, isn't that what it's all about?
All about.
He doesn't care if I'm wearing my Oregon Tech gear. He just knows I'm trying to help NAIA.
Yeah.
And he knows that in 20 minutes I'm going to scream and yell and hope he gets beat. But for that time, that to me, that moment right there told me a lot. I mean,
And just for the little moment that I've been talking to you, you're pretty special in this NAIA level, because we were coming out of that one clinic the other day when I was with our assistant coach, and I saw the hat, I saw the Cascade Hoops talk, and I was like, I nudged him. I said, Day, I think that's Cascade Hoops. And then he was like, oh, maybe try to talk to him because, I mean, you're starting a podcast. And I was like, it didn't come to my mind like, oh, I'm doing a podcast, he's doing a podcast, we can talk about podcast stuff. So I was just like, you know, that's why I went up to talk to you, and I was like, you're an inspiration to NAIA and to these players, and it's exciting to have you at a big tournament. And and I see you behind the booth. You're on the last booth, and it's fun to see you. You and your friend have the same hat, and you know, you're very
we're right there in the target zone.
The ref's always looking at you. So so last thing, do you want to have anything to say to end, or you can actually shout out?
Can I sing? No.
Well, I was gonna say you can sing too. I was gonna say, but you can give a shout out. You can use the time to give a shout out.
No, I just want to take a moment and thank you, Zach. I think what you're doing is really good. You've got this guy. He's got good equipment, and you really are good behind the mic.
Oh, thank
I
you.
think I think you do a great job. You're better than I am. I can tell you that. So
Thank
I
you.
should be interviewing you. We got to set that up because I always interview seniors after the season.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll have to get you on there. But you folks listening, follow him. Watch
Yeah.
us. He's got good gear. He's going to do it right. And I just want to thank you for taking a few minutes before you. Maybe this is a good relaxing thing before you have a big game.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed talking to you, and thank you very, very much for this opportunity.
Yeah, and thank you because, like I said, you don't have to be doing this. We have a big day tomorrow, a big day for 2 days. So, yeah, thank you for taking the time to, sit down and chat with Zachary. So that's the end of it. And if you made it this far, thank you for listening to Cascade Hoops Talk, where you can find it on Twitter. Are you on Instagram?
No, just Twitter at Cascade Hoop Talk.
Okay.
And that's where to find most of the stuff. And then the podcast is on Anchor, but it just goes out on RSS. So you just type in Cascade Hoops Talk. It comes up Apple, Google, everywhere.
Okay. Yep. So Cascade Hoops Talk through the RSS form, just like this podcast, and then on Twitter. And thank you for listening to Billy Dee and Zachary Aird. Follow this podcast's Instagram at Zachary's _ where the E is a 3 and the 2 O's are zeros. Zachary's _ Metamorphosis. Thank you for listening, and to remember to always come back to the breath.